Well, it's another crappy sunny day here in Scotland. Today's task is to change the rear discs. These ones are they're not drastic, but they're not exactly how they should be. The other side's actually worse. It's probably more a case of lubricating the caliper more than anything else. But picked up a set of discs on Amazon. These are 25 quid, so I can't really complain. Just your standard solid rear discs, and also picked up a set of pads just under a tenner on eBay. I'm assuming it's the same thing, so it does say i20 there, but we'll soon find out. So anyway, I've got the car jacked up, and I've also got the axle stand. So next thing is take this wheel off. So that's me got the wheel off. I always tend to put the wheel underneath the sill, just in case something does happen. Obviously I've got the trolley rack and an axle stand, just in case something does go wrong as well. The first problem I've got is this retaining screw is very tightly in. I notice on this one it appears there is some kind of copper slip in there, unlike the first one, but this doesn't seem to be lined up with another screw, so maybe there's only one screw for this particular one. There's both shims for the pad carriers, I see. So first thing to do is I'll take off the caliper just to have a quick. I pressed the button by mistake there. So it's not looking particularly wonderful, but this is the trouble with cars in Scotland. They get a lot of corrosion. There's no obvious signs of any grease in the pads there for sure. But I'll undo the two 14mm nuts. There's one there and there's one just there, and that'll give me access to the pads to see, just to make sure first of all it's the correct pads that I've got. Okay. Well, a bit of a surprise here. These 14mm bolts came out pretty easily actually. It must have been changed at some point. Still no sign of any Anti-Sieze compound on them, and the pads are pretty much essentially as new. So I'm just going to grease up the caliper, I think. I'm not going to bother doing anything at the moment. I might as well just keep this set of brake discs for another time, but I need to look at the other side for sure. So I'm not going to think about changing the disc because it's fine. But I'll these need lubricated. They're very tight in there. Yeah, there's definitely needs greased up. So I'll get those pads out, and slides are a bit. That doesn't feel right at all. Oh, you can see it's totally bone dry. It's totally bone dry. Seals come out, and yeah, this one is kind of similar. So these need to be taken out and greased up, and then I'll take the pad carrier off and get that all cleaned up. Looks like it's 14mm for the pad carrier on these ones, 2 bolts there. So I'll unbolt them, have a look, but I'm just going to reassemble this. I'm not going to bother putting these new discs on yet, or these pads, but I'll certainly quickly check and see if these pads are the same size as that box. Now I'm taking the pad carrier over the trusty wood pile. Yeah, the pads seem to be okay. I've looked at them in comparison to the other box. Seems to be fine. As you can see, there's no obvious signs of any grease in the slides, and it's kind of hard doing this with one hand, but as you can see, these are certainly not how they should be. I'll need to clean this up. Same with this one. It's marginally better. This one's actually, it's been reassembled at some point without the full seal. You can see a comparison. I take this one out. Yeah, they've gone, so they've been letting crap in. But I don't have any spares with me at the moment. I'll check on eBay to see how much a new set of these cost, but I'm quite sure that just a bit of grease will have them working just exactly how it should be. Get all these bits cleaned out. So I'll disassemble this, get them greased up, and bang back in, and then I'll put a bit of grease on the caliper piston, just to make sure nothing gets in, because as I say, here in Scotland the weather's terrible. The amount of salt and stuff you get on the road in the winter, it just rusts everything to hell and seizes everything up. But I'll get these cleaned up and see how it looks after that. Well, I've just greased the pads. They were actually very, very tight in. As I say, I've greased the sliders up. They're moving fine. Obviously the seals have gone, but they're certainly sliding better than they were. I've also put some grease on the caliper piston. So the next thing is just to hook the thing back up and bolt it all together, and put the wheel back on. Well, that's the thing reassembled. So I've tightened up the 14mm bolt there for the caliper. Same with the one here. As you can see, everything's nicely greased up. So this has obviously seen better days, but I don't really think I need to bother changing it at the moment. Next thing to do is to put the wheel back on, and have a look at the other side, because the other side's definitely got a little bit of wear, so I can only imagine the pads are sticking in the slides or something like that. So on to the other side once I've got this wheel on. Well, this is the passenger side, the left hand side of the vehicle. Again, the nuts are bone dry again, but they came out very easily, so I'm not going to complain about that. No problem there, but they'll get copper slipped up. The pads again look totally dry. I can't see any sort of lubrication or grease there. As you can see, the pads have been kind of only working on one little section of the disc, so I imagine that's something to do with them not sliding properly. Let's see what the slides are like. Slides are not bad actually. Slides seem okay there. Slides are okay there. So they're fine. Don't need to bother touching them. So I'll just take the the pads out of the carrier and get them greased up and put back on. And I'll maybe just take these bolts out, the pad carrier bolts out, one at a time, and see if they need any grease on them. But I imagine they will, looking at the rest of the stuff. That looks pretty rusty in there as well, but it's just part and parcel of the weather here in Scotland. It's just terrible for corrosion. And then I'll grease up this piston. That one actually looks a little bit further out than on the other side, so certainly need to get a bit of grease on that to stop any corrosion. Again, nothing of it on there. It's just simple maintenance, makes things last longer, but obviously it would appear the garage doesn't really worry about that. So anyway, pads out and then a grease. Well, it looks like I'm getting this done just in time because it looks like it may well rain. So the pad slides have been all greased at the top and the bottom. I've copper slipped the 14mm bolts for the caliper, and I've copper slipped both the 14mm bolts for the pad carrier. It's quite handy on the rear end because they're both the same size. Most cars I've worked on in recent years, well, most cars I've owned, have been like a 14 and then a 17. So it's a lot easier not having to think about that. Swapping the socket over, but it's not a big deal. The pads are actually worn to that shape, so I'll just let them run their course, and then once they get worse, or maybe it'll improve, maybe it'll take some of that off. I'll change it to the other discs and pads. But there's still a bit of mileage left in these. They're not overly bad. And again, being in Scotland, the other set will look like this within about a year anyway, probably. So now time to get the wheel back on, get all the grease and the tools away, and get this uploaded.